welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja and I hope you have guessed what we are going to talk about right now because the picture is very suggestive. It's all about drought today. Now, drought, the concept of it, types, causes, mitigation, along with what are the challenges and the consequences, everything is discussed in detail from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 3, and preliminary facts are very important. Let's begin with the first topic, that is the news. Now, the news is because of a report by the name of Drought in Numbers 2022. This has said that apart from the global crisis on drought, many parts in India are vulnerable to drought, and India's GDP has been reduced from 2 to 5% between the years 1998 and 2017, and this is because of the increasing instances of drought. Everything we will talk about here will be the conceptual clarity, the factual information, and the analysis. So I hope you have your pen and paper in your hands. Let's move on. Let's talk about the report. This report has been brought out by United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, of which there are 197 member states, 196 countries plus the European Union. And it brings together the governments, NGOs, civil societies, and other stakeholders to talk about the most important issue that the world is facing right now, that is desertification. And the report has a collection of data with the effects of drought on our ecosystem, how they can be mitigated through efficient planning for the future. It also helps to inform negotiation that is surrounding the key decision by the UNCCD's 197 member parties at the 15th Conference of Parties. 15th Conference of Parties is going on in Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire, that is in West Africa. Okay, so remember that Conference of Party 15 Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. So let's talk about the important features with respect to COP15. It is going to talk about desertification, land degradation, as well as drought. The theme for COP15 is land, life, legacy, from scarcity to prosperity. And also they will talk about the interconnectedness challenges of land degradation, climate change, and biodiversity loss. Everything is integrated. How? Whenever there is a risk of increased climate change, there will be an anomaly with respect to the hydrological cycle. And that might cause flood for a short period of time and drought for a longer period of time. That, as a result, loses its the area loses its biodiversity. So everything is interconnected. It's a web. And as we move into the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, so we are moving towards our UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Remember that as well. The UNCCD, it envisions restoring 1 billion hectares of land, and till when? 2030. Remember that. 1 billion hectares of land till the year 2030. Very important fact. Also, create a land degradation neutral world. This is one of the mission of UNCCD. Remember that. Let's move on and talk about droughts. What are the drought? What are the types of drought and what is drought? A drought is a temporary reduction in water or moisture availability below the normal or expected amount of specific period, and the occurrence of substantially lower than average precipitation in a season. Whenever there is an expected amount of precipitation in a season, if the rainfall or precipitation is below that time period is known as a drought time period. And there are three types of it. Major types of drought are three. Meteorological drought, when the situation where there is a reduction of a rainfall for a specific period below a specific amount. Okay, and the actual rainfall in an area is significantly less than the climatologically mean of that area. First that. And according to Indian Meteorological Department, a drought exists when the average annual rainfall is less than 75% of the normal. Remember that as well. And this meteorological drought could be because of lean season of monsoon. The precipitation is very lean or less. Late onset of monsoon or early withdrawal of monsoon. This can also be one of the causes of meteorological drought. Then we are talking about hydrological drought, which is associated with the reduction in water level. The water level is less. These are of two types: surface drought, surface water drought, that means less amount of water in rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, tanks and reservoirs. Then we have groundwater drought. This is with respect to the fall in the groundwater level. This could be very unregulated mining, also concretization, because wetlands and rivers are very susceptible to be damaged whenever we are making roads and infrastructure. With respect to agriculture, too much of withdrawing of groundwater leads to groundwater drought. So these are the many causes. Agricultural drought, that is the most important, when soil moisture goes below the level needed to sustain plant growth. Soil moisture, remember that. Soil moisture is an important factor whenever we are accounting for agricultural drought. And the erratic rainfall conditions and inadequate soil moisture result in crop failure. Whenever there is erratic rainfall conditions, sometimes it's raining a lot, sometimes it's not raining a lot, it's raining less or not even raining at all, then that causes soil moisture to be reduced. And when there is no soil moisture, the soil is not able to retain moisture, it cannot nurse a plant. Now, if we talk about the reasons for it, first is excessive use of high yielding variety seeds. Like after the Green Revolution, we have started wheat and rice cultivation a lot. Rice is a highly water intensive crop that needs more and more groundwater retention, groundwater exploitation. So first is that. And there is a change in cropping pattern. Whenever there occurs a change in cropping pattern, suppose we are talking about commercial crops or such crops such as sugarcane, which are highly in demand for commercial purposes, that also leads to groundwater exploitation, and that can be a result of agricultural drought. And this is because of when India receives a lot of rainfall, no other part in the world receives as bounty rainfall as India does. Still we are facing such problems. Why? Because more than 80% of the rainfall is received in less than 100 days. We are talking about southwest monsoon. The most part of the monsoon rain, the most part of the annual rain we receive is with respect to southwest monsoon, and specifically the northern parts of the region and the windward side of the Western Ghats. So that causes a problem. And 21% area receives less than 700 mm rains annually, making such areas the hotspot of drought, such as Rajasthan, Marathwada region. These are the regions which are accounting for 21% areas that receive less rainfall. Per capita water availability in the country is also declining, as we tend to exploit groundwater, use whatever water is available in an unsustainable manner, and of course dumping of waste and not recycling water in a proper manner, not harvesting rainwater in a proper manner is also causing similar issues. This is a map which shows us the drought regions of India, the traditional drought regions of India, and that span, as you can see, peninsular, specifically the leeward side of Western Ghat, which do not receive much rainfall. These areas are very, very prone to or susceptible to drought. Specifically, if we talk about the arid regions of Rajasthan and Gujarat, similarly, these regions are also very susceptible to drought. So, what are the consequences, the major concerns that we are facing right now with respect to desertification in the world? According to a World Bank report, the droughts could force up to 216 million people to migrate by 2050. And that is a cause of concern. We have climate refugees in the making. Also, that could lead to other related factors as well. There can be a web of interrelated factors. Water scarcity, declining crop productivity, that can cause food insecurity, rise in sea levels, that means coastal erosion. Whenever sea level rises, specifically for countries such as India, which has a huge coastline of 7,000 plus kilometers, then what happens? The people who are dependent on the coastal areas for their livelihoods will also get impacted. Overpopulation and demographical changes are also there. Weather, climate and water hazard, because of this, 50% of all the disasters have happened, and 45% of all reported deaths have been because of weather, climate and water hazard since the year 1970. Again, World Meteorological Organization has said 9 of 10 of these deaths have occurred in developing countries. That means the countries which do not have proper early warning system, they do not have proper water management strategies, are those countries. Between 2020 and 2022, 23 countries have faced drought emergency specifically from Africa. You can see Afghanistan, Angola, Brazil, Burkina Faso, Chile, Ethiopia, Iraq, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Lesotho, Mali, Mauritania. Then we also have Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, Niger, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Pakistan, United States, and Zambia. Apart from United States, all these areas have seen a lot of extremism, radicalism, instability that is political in nature and with respect to food security as well. So you can see by the countries themselves that how our economy and the environment are in a rhythm, and if we destroy that rhythm, it could lead to havoc. Then climate change alone, it will cause 129 countries to experience an increase in drought exposure in the next few decades. These are the major concerns that we had talked about. Moving on, if we talk about more of it, first we have to understand that more than 1 billion people have been impacted by drought, and that was in just 19 years, 2000 to 2019. And Africa was the worst hit. Specifically, if we talk about East Africa, East Africa was the most hurt with respect to drought. And with respect to this particular statement, after flooding, this is the second most worst disaster, second most world's worst disaster. After flooding, we had drought. Remember that. Then women and girls in emerging and developing countries are being impacted unequally, we can say, because the burden of any crisis at the end falls on women and girls. Gender inequality, it of course takes a toll on the well-being of the women and girls, because whenever there will be migration, the more concern will be with respect to women education, women equality, girls education, girls equality, that is all. The burden of water collection also disproportionately falls on women, 72%, and girls, 39%. And also, if we talk about the calorific value, they spend huge amount of their calories in just fetching water. So food insecurity, malnutrition, undernutrition, everything is interconnected like this. Moving on, what can be the consequences? First, there has been a prediction that global warming will reach, at the current level what we are doing right now, it will reach 3 degrees Celsius by 2100, and that is a cause of concern. Drought losses could be 5 times higher than what we are seeing today, and the largest increase will be seen in the Mediterranean and the Atlantic regions of Europe. Australia's mega drought in 2019 and 2020, it contributed to mega fires which we saw in 2020. 3 billion animals were either killed or they migrated. 3 billion. So biodiversity loss is also interconnected. 84% of all the terrestrial ecosystem are threatened by changing and intensifying wildfires, which we have discussed yesterday. See that video as well. Moving on, the 2017 report of Food and Agricultural Organization, the percentage of plants affected by drought, it has more than doubled in the last 40 years, and around 12 million hectares of land are lost each year due to drought and desertification. These are the reasons. Now, what we can do to mitigate? NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, has given us certain guidelines how to tackle drought. Developing vulnerability profiles, that means the profile of India with respect to which region, which community, which population group are more vulnerable. We can form a profiling of those areas, regions, and population. Then we can have a policy formulated with respect to early warning system, how to rehabilitate such population, and what can be done to mitigate any ill impacts on the current population. Specific drought management cells should be created, because this is becoming a huge problem not only for the world but specifically for India. So a proper channelization of policies can be done only if we have a specific drought management. A concentrated solution can be done only then. Specific guidelines for the use of ICT, how to formulate and chalk out the use of artificial intelligence for drought management, and the role of National Informatics Center for online interaction and availability of real-time drought-affected information. Assessment of damage expected, how agriculture production is being damaged, how depletion of water resources, livestock population, land degradation and deforestation, and human health is getting impacted. That should be all accounted for in economic terms. Then only we will understand what amount of GDP India is losing. For question, I do not have a mains question today. I have a prelims question. So the prelims question is, with respect to drought, how many sustainable development goals are related? Comment about it in the comment segment. The top 20 commentators will have their names in the next particular in news. Okay. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.